Are you actually?
No.
Okay.
No. Well,
welcome
welcome
Polite as
back
Fuck.
to Polite as Fuck. Gals, ladies, and gents.
And thems
everything
and theys
in
and
between.
all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here. We're doing it. It's another glorious day in San Diego.
Nice. It's been so cozy. January's been a cozy month.
It has
and I've
been
been a fan.
what did you say a few days ago? You were like, we'll go out like next month or something like that. I was like, that's a good plan.
We're just in hibernation. We're just resetting. I know that I can go out and not drink. I'm doing dry January.
There we go.
And I know that I can do that. But it's also like I feel like in my whole everything right now, I just need like to chill for a sec.
Yeah.
And
I just feel not very social. So like, I don't know what the good thing would be to like put yourself out there to feel more, or just kind of wait until you know you're going to have a good time. Gonna pat Luna's foot.
She's literally licking the carpet.
There must be something yummy there.
What is there, crazy girl?
The smell of some sort. She cared too much.
You said something and I wanted to
not being social, hibernation.
Oh yeah, this morning. I don't know why I like have insomnia right now.
I know you were like up, you were cooking and cleaning. I was like, I'm laying right here.
I don't know what's going on, but I was just really antsy because I was like, when's she gonna wake up? I don't know what to do with myself. I finished my book.
Oh my God. What time did you wake up?
Like 6:45.
Ew.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know what's happening. I can't sleep. I just tossing and turning.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
You could have woken me up. You could have knocked on the door and been like, it's time.
It's forcing me to do things. So I'm not just, waiting for you to entertain me.
Well, I'm confused with myself because normally I get up pretty early, and yesterday and today I am like asleep until like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I've never seen you sleep that much.
I'm very, I don't know what is going on. Yeah, I really need to sleep, I guess. I'm just letting myself do what's needed.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we wanted to do some recs.
Yeah. Oh, rec, yeah, baby. I can start off with my first one. Okay. I have a really, really good one. I'm really excited about it, and I would love for you guys to join in. I know, Erica, you have book club and stuff, and you had put that in the Rec Yeah last time, but I have a book for you guys. It's called The Nickel Boys. It's by Colson Whitehead, and it's a novel. It's a fiction-based story on sort of a true story about this I think the original school was called like Dossier School for Boys or Academy for Boys, and it was based in Florida. And basically it was like, instead of youth being like put in juvie or jail or prison, like back in the day, I think it opened in like 1900 and it actually closed in 2011. And then an archaeologist from one of the schools in Florida was like looking at the site or something, and I may be baffling the story. This is just like an umbrella kind of overall thing of it, and had found like bones of young boys that were like severely mistreated, like abused and like hit and just like crazy things, like not fed well, all of these things. And this was just recently, like even Obama, this book really recently came out. The story was like when Obama was president, and all of these things started to come to light about what they did in this school that was supposed to be like a reformative school for these young boys. And it was segregated between white and black. And even in the story, it has like
even in like the 2000s.
And even in the story, they talk about how there was this Mexican boy, and about how some days when he was light skinned would be put in the white boys, and then when he got tanned, they would put him with the black boys.
What?
And about how he felt, like just about his story. And it's such a good book. It's very like poetically written, so the sentences are short, and it's very like it really gives you an illustration of what's happening. It is a novel, so it's fiction. This actual story isn't real, but it's based on a real thing. And of course, like while I saw that and I'd be reading a chapter and something would happen, I would Google to see if similar things did happen. And it's very like the writer, his name is Colson Whitehead, fantastic writer. It lines up pretty well with at least like my little Google searches that I've been doing, but it's really good. It's just like eye-opening. He's a black writer, and so it's just like I love hearing voices like that. The story is just really hard but beautiful is like the best way that I can put it. I very much recommend it because I didn't even know, I'm from Florida, and I didn't even know that. I knew that there were like reform schools, but what baffled me the most is that it didn't close until 2011.
Yeah, that's
that was
insane.
like felt like yesterday. It's crazy. So that's my first rec. Kind of on the deeper side, but it's a really good book. I like books that like is a good story. It's like the way that it's written is really like poetic and gives a nice like visual of everything that's happening. So yeah.
I really want to read that. I was also going to recommend a book, but I finished it this morning and I don't know how I feel about it. Not that it wasn't bad. It just kind of was a bit long, and I feel like it could have been a quicker story that was really good. But Daisy Jones and the Six, I thought it was a real band. It's about like a rock and roll band in the 70s, but it's not actually a real band. But it's just kind of like an interview almost is the way the whole book is written. Like it has different characters speaking at different times, telling their sides of the story.
Oh, gotcha.
And it's really interesting. A lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But I was like, okay, same thing in the next chapter. And here we go again. But it's an easy read. It was a fun read. So I would still recommend it. Just maybe not like the top of the top.
Gotcha. Rick. Oh, I had a podcast that I listened to a few days ago. So her name is Glennon Doyle. She wrote a book called Love Warrior that I have. It's actually a really good book, but I haven't read it in a minute. So I'm like, I remember it being really good, but I forget exactly what it's about. So I'm not wrecking it. But she has a podcast. It's like, shoot, now I have to take time to find it because I totally forgot. Here we go. We Can Do Hard Things with Glennon Doyle. The only thing I have to say about this is I highly recommend her podcast, and this podcast that I'm about to share with you guys. Her voice just takes a second to get used to. That's the only thing that I think was hard for me to like get into it. But then once I heard what the topic was, like you get used to it. But at first I was like, oh, I don't know how long I'm going to last.
Yeah.
But it's Sonia Renee Taylor. What if you loved your body? So the whole podcast is, they're speaking with this woman. Her name is Sonia Ray Taylor. And, Renee, not Ray. I'm like messing up all my words. And they just talk about how we started to not love your body. And she has this like, they talk about how when an acorn, when you're an acorn, or when an acorn is becoming a tree, it doesn't think about becoming a great oak tree. It just like does. And so they start off with that visual, and then they keep using that as the podcast goes on, just in the sense of like loving your body and how we stopped loving our body, and about how even like as young kids, and I related to this, like I didn't even know that you weren't supposed to like your cellulite until they said this in the podcast, and this was somebody saying it, like she didn't know that she wasn't supposed to like her cellulite until she saw an ad saying, love your cellulite. And she was like, wait, was I not supposed to? Is that a thing? And so it was just a really interesting podcast about like accepting yourself as who you are. And like we say all the time, like this is what you got. So how do you love it when you feel like you don't? So it was a really good, easy listen to. So yeah,
it sounds really good.
Yeah.
I think I also have a podcast, just the one I was listening to the other day that I sent to you. It's a really long title, but it's like the On Purpose podcast with Jay something or other. I don't remember his name. Jay Shetty?
Jay Shetty, yeah, that's what I was going to seltzer. I was like, that's not right.
It was actually sent to me from our friend Brooke, but it's how to get out of your own way to find love. And then there's a whole other half of the title that I don't remember. But it's just, I thought it was really good because I think, especially as you get into your, over the hump of your 20s.
That's so sad.
We're going to be 27 this year, which is crazy. And as much as I love doing my thing, hanging out, I also I will fall into the mindset of like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be 27 and I don't even have like a partner. I'm not even like starting in a relationship. Like it's, what am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, wait, it's going to be fine. It'll all work out. And so anyway, it's just talking about like setting boundaries, having your own life, having your own like security will allow you to have love in a better way, because oftentimes, at least for myself, I'll like let up my boundaries or like let people walk all over my boundaries for the sake of like, oh, maybe they'll love me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't work, which I know. So I just thought it was good. There's a lot more in there and would recommend.
I love that. My final rec. Oh my gosh, guys, I have so many thoughts on this. Okay, my final rec is this show. I have to say it right. Ginny and Georgia. Erica and I call it Gin and Ginny. I don't know why. It's just what we say. We're like getting ready and we're like, let's put on some Gin and Ginny. This show is on Netflix. It's so bad, but it's so good. It's like, it is itching a scratch or scratching an itch that I didn't know was there. I feel like is the best way to put it, because I'm just like, it's so cringy, but I can't stop watching it.
I know. There are literal moments where Ellie and I have to leave the room.
I have to leave. It's the time to get a snack, go to the bathroom, grab water, is like during these like periods of awkwardness in the show that are just so overwhelmingly awkward. I can't even watch it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think as like our age, it's funny because we're like in between these two things. I can relate to the mom a little bit because I'm like, oh, you're an actual adult and these are maybe things that I would do, even though you're kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then the girl, I'm like, I had these experiences and I feel like I'm reliving them and I don't want to relive these awkward things from high school. But it's so good. I think the second season just recently came out, so we're trying to finish that. It's a good thing to just like put on the background after you're done watching us, of course.
Yeah, of course. And while you're doing that, my last rec is Dot's pretzels.
Oh, yeah. Erica's obsession with Dots.
I don't know what is on them, but they're the best pretzels I've ever had. And I'm not a pretzel person, but I like can eat that whole bag in like a few days.
But there's different flavors. So what flavors do you recommend?
The
Original. Okay.
Original. Yeah. There's some spice something. Whatever they're doing, I think in North Dakota, they're doing it right.
Love it. Good for you, North Dakota.
You can get them at your local grocery store, not Trader Joe's.
I know. Sometimes Trader Joe's, I love those things that are like, I love going to Trader Joe's because then I have to go to the actual store right after. Yeah. I'm like, that's so true.
But Vaughn's, I think that's where I got them. Yeah. And they were at the food bowl.
Yeah, love the food bowl.
Anyway, lots of good things.
Lots of good things.
We're excited for this episode. Another one with my sister. I do want to preface that we did have some audio difficulties. So if you hear the sound change a bit, because we had to switch to our phones. But we didn't want to re-record because it's hard. This isn't a like scripted conversation. And I think when you re-record something, then you lose the authenticity of what you just originally said.
No, absolutely. And it's a good conversation to have. It was a beautiful conversation. Like, I love your sister so much. I love your entire family so much. But for her to do that for us and for you guys is just really great. We recently did a episode wow, really doing well today, around both of us growing up in religious families and what that kind of looked like in our childhood and how we kind of grew out of that and into the way that we actually believe. And I think this is a really good piggyback conversation from that episode. So catch up on that episode. We're on YouTube, and then join us while we talk about this conversation of
Savannah's coming out.
Yeah.
Story. All right. See
Love
you there.
And welcome to another episode of
Polite as Fuck.
I love that.
Welcome back.
Welcome
Savannah.
back.
Hey, great to be here.
We've missed you.
It's been so long.
It's been so long.
Welcome to the gay episode.
That's a good intro. I like it.
This is my sister Savannah.
I'm gay.
I'm not.
I'm not.
So it's actually just Savannah's episode. But I thought it'd be good for Savannah to come on, tell us a little bit about your story. The last episode we talked about our religious upbringing, which I think brings a unique perspective to the situation. Not the situation, but just like your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Ellie, do you have anything to add?
No, just creating a space for people to share their stories is what we're here for. So that's what we want to do. Plus, I've never heard this story. I knew you back in high school, and I know you now, and like the middle part, we didn't connect. So I'm actually very interested to hear. I have a few questions for you too. So I'm excited.
Okay.
Yay.
So, when'd you know you were gay?
Let's get into it. Okay. Well, I guess we'll take it back. I feel like, you don't really realize a lot of things until you're like looking back in hindsight.
Yeah.
Things make a lot more sense. But because I don't really, a lot of people who are queer will say that they knew that and felt that way when they were like a kid or even in middle school. And I feel like that wasn't necessarily my experience. I definitely had like crushes on boys in middle school. Middle school is when I would say I did. And then in high school, I was just like giving asexual, like just not really caring about going on dates with anyone necessarily. But I did have really intense friendships with my female friends. And that's one thing that in hindsight, you're like, oh, that's a gay flag. I had a friend in high school who was like openly bisexual, and she told me once that I'm just so oblivious sometimes, and she was like, I've been hitting on you for months, and I was like, what? And that was the first time that I thought like, oh my gosh, am I gay? Like, is this like something that could be like a real thing for me? Because it's interesting how the gays really flock together. In high school, like since graduating, so many of my friends that I went to school with have like come out, or people that I like had really close relationships to have come out. And I had a really close friend, close friends to this day, who came out to me in high school. And that was a really big deal for me because he knew that I was religious, and that was a big deterrent for him in coming out to me, was that I was raised in the church and was Mormon. And like, I think that was a big indicator for me of why I didn't really align myself with those beliefs, because I'm like, if this is someone I love who wants to like share something deeper about themselves with me, and a reason why they're not doing it is because of this faith that claims to be like loving and accepting, even though we know that that's like not really the case. And when he came out to me, that didn't necessarily make me feel anything about my sexuality, but it made me feel closer to my friend who was queer, and like having that knowledge, feeling comfortable to like talk about those things with him was really important for me. And that was like a super emotional day and time in my life in high school. That was like sophomore year. And then I would say that I had a really intense friendship with a girl in high school who also was like interested in exploring the church and learning more about the church. And I was like, sure, like I know that my family is a safe space to like do that with. Like if you have questions, we can help answer those in like the way that I feel like it should be answered, not going to like, I don't know, another family in the church or like looking at other resources. I felt like it was a good space for her to like feel safe exploring that.
Right.
And then we also got to hang out all the time. Like she would go to church with us every Sunday and she was like one of the only friends I could hang out with really on Sundays too, because that wasn't a thing.
Right.
And there's like 3 relationships that I had with separate like girls in high school that were just really intense and really emotional when you look back on it. You're like, that was kind of gay. And
That was a gay thing.
What do you mean by intense? Like, you had strong feelings for them? Or, like, what does that mean?
I definitely had feelings for the girl who, like,
Was interested in the
was
church?
interested in the church, which was just always so confusing and heartbreaking because I was also, like, a confidant for these girls for, like, talking about their boy problems and talking about, and she was, like, so hung up on this guy from way back in the day, and that would be, like, that's why she didn't really date anybody else in high school, is because she still had feelings for this guy. But then we would hang out and, like, sit in her car and talk for 6 hours straight, and, like, we went to Starbucks and got our little hot chocolate or whatever, and then Starbucks closed, and we're sitting in her car, and it's 2 a.m. and we're still like that kind of relationship, you know, like where you're just doing things that are, like, I feel like not things that you would do in a normal friendship. It was kind of like going beyond that in terms of, like, just being so sharing really personal, deep things with the other person. And I mean, I made her things in ceramics and, like, wrote her love letters, basically. I'm really thinking about it. Like, I wrote really, really deep, heartfelt letters to her. And, like, I mean, I remember the first day that she was in my ceramics class, and I remember the first day that she was in my class, and I was like, I want to, like, know her, and I want to be really close to her, and, like,
I get what
gay, you know?
Gay flag.
It's gay.
It's interesting, the mindset, though, of, like, how, like, I don't know if it's, like, small town or if it's religion or it's, like, I feel like when you are growing up, especially in this fucking town, and you have a crush, that's how you identify it, is, like, that's a crush. And so for you to be like, oh, I want to get to know her, you know, did you feel like it was a crush in that moment, or did you not place it as, like, that word crush, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I don't think I did place it as a crush, even though that's, like, fully what it was.
Right.
I think I just also didn't, I mean, I had friends, but I didn't necessarily have, like, a best friend at that time, and it was, like, kind of a way for me to, like, justify that, if that makes sense. Like, this is just my best friend.
Right.
And then, I mean, her older sister is gay, and I remember when she went to, like, visit her sister, and her sister was dating a girl at that time, but wasn't, like, out, and she didn't know that her sister and her were dating. She thought they were just friends, and she's telling me this story about how her and her sister's girlfriend were, like, laying on the bed together, and she was like, I kind of thought that, like, we might kiss. Like, I kind of had feelings for her, and she told her that she liked her as more than a friend. And then she was like, I'm dating your sister. And so that was crazy, but that was, like, an indicator to me that, like, she could be gay, which was just more confusing because then I'm like, I have feelings for her too, and, like, just kind of, like, holding out hope that maybe, I don't even know what I wanted that to be, but it was just, like, and then, but the fact that she was exploring the church was also, like, a confusing element to it too. And she's actually, like, she was kind of a shitty friend to me sometimes, and was flaky and canceled on me, like, last minute. And, like, I just invested so much emotionally in this friendship, more than you would in a normal friendship, because I had feelings for her. And so when she would do things like that, it would, like, really upset me. And I remember Mom was like, I just don't like the way that she treats you, and, like, was being defensive of me, which I really appreciate, because I think she could tell that, like, I had, like, not feelings for her, but, like, cared about her
a lot, right?
Yeah. And she's older than me, so she, like, graduated and moved away, and that kind of, like, ended that whole situation. And then I didn't really, like, have any sort of friendship or relationship like that after she had left.
Was this all sophomore year? Like, your friend came out to you, you had this close friendship with her?
Well, because I guess, yeah, because when I was a sophomore, you guys were seniors.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Big year.
Big year,
Heavy
10th grade.
year.
Heavy year. And then I kind of feel like I was just from that point on, like my close friends kind of got into like other interests and were like partying and stuff, and I didn't really do that in high school. And so I kind of was just like a loner a little bit, and spent a lot of time in the ceramics room thinking my thoughts, listening to my music, being sad.
As every high schooler at that time, I feel.
Totally.
Trying to figure out and navigate a lot of different feelings.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I didn't really like think more about, I feel like it's something that you think about, but never really, I mean, there was never really a place to like talk about it. And I knew that I could talk to like Isaiah or like my friends who were openly like supportive of queer people or were queer themselves. And, but I just didn't really, I hadn't come out to myself yet. And I feel like that's like the first step is to like look at yourself in the mirror. Like, I mean, I wrote it down in my journal to myself the first time that I was like, okay, I'm gay.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, I mean, I went away for school, and in Utah, I didn't really like date anyone. I had a really close friendship with this guy, and he like liked me as more than a friend. And I like didn't realize that until it was like very clear that that's how he felt, because he was in a relationship when we first met, and I was just like, we have so much fun together. I love hanging out with him. But I never was like interested in him in that way, even though I had tried to be, because I'm like, I feel like you try to like reject that until it's like your last resort, like your gayness, I feel, you know, and you're like, okay, there's no like running away from that.
Yeah. I mean, you were saying earlier you had crushes in middle school and like your first kiss.
Oh my gosh. She really wants me to tell this story. I mean, you just want me to. There was not really
it's so
anything.
funny.
It's so funny. My first kiss was with our foreign exchange student from Brazil who was on the swim team, and he was really sweet. And he lived. One of his host family was like our close family friend, and so we would hang out all the time, like outside of swim practice. And I remember we were like making pizzas one night, and him and I were, this was at our family friend's house, and we were like making this pizza together, and we were cracking up. And I just remember mom looking at me, and I remember her friend looking at me, and I'm like, felt so uncomfortable because they were like assigning this like feeling to what was happening that I knew I didn't feel. But they were like making it feel that way, even though we were just like friends. And anyway, the night before he left, it was my birthday party, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the girl who I was in love with was there. He was there too. And there had been like some like, I guess, tension leading up to this moment. Where we had like texted and kind of like realized that we liked each other. But he was literally moving back to Brazil, so we'll never see each other again, probably.
Yeah.
And we had like my birthday party or whatever, and then he was like walking out, and I was like giving him a hug goodbye, and then he kissed me
on the lips,
on the mouth,
on the mouth hole. Okay.
Yeah. And then my little brother and sister were there, whole family affair, as well as like lots of our friends, because they were all like walking out to the car as a group. And I mean, we had kind of like walked to the side to like say goodbye or whatever. Oh my God, it's so anxiety inducing to talk about this.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
A funny story.
It's funny, but it's like, I just remember everything that happened after this was like so awkward. Wasn't a good kiss, but cute. In retrospect, not cute that McKenna and CJ were running around the grass screaming. I think you or someone was trying to like corral them because we were kissing, and then they were clearly running around the yard screaming, like freaking out that they were watching me kiss someone, and it was just such an awkward.
Seems like an all-around great time.
I
for
just
you.
remember you coming into the house, and I don't know if it was right after, but I remember you saying, if this is what that kissing is like or something, I don't ever want to do it again. I remember you saying that.
I don't think he knew what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. That it wasn't. It was like, I like you, but I don't like that we did that.
Yeah.
And I just remember I didn't talk to anyone about it. I felt so awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mom tried to talk to me about it when we were up at the condo. And I said, if you speak to me about this, I will get out of the car and run away. And then she tried to talk to me about it. And I got out of the car and ran away, literally.
What?
Because I'm gay. And I like didn't want to talk about kids. Like, it made me feel so uncomfortable
Yeah.
that it had happened. And I also just felt so... Back to like the whole religion thing, I felt like shameful about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
especially any
you
feeling that I had and anything that I did. And it was just, didn't want to talk to my mom about it. Didn't want to talk to anyone about it. Didn't want to kiss a boy. Didn't want to talk about kissing a boy. So that was my first kiss. Really cute. I feel like it's cute in the like conceptual
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah.
Like,
It is.
like, oh, foreign exchange student, and he was really sweet, and I'm glad that he was my first kiss. Because
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no one else that I would have. If it had to be a guy,
Glad it was him.
and then I went on another date with. This is the only time I've actually been on a date with a man. And it's my cousin's husband's brother. My cousin and her husband were not married at the time. They were just dating. And then I went on a double date with them and his brother.
Got you.
And before the date, I met at my cousin's house. She lived in Sparks, and I was like getting ready, got out of the car, and slammed my thumb in the car door. Like, car was locked and my thumb was in the door.
Oh, so you couldn't take it out?
So I couldn't take it out. So I'm like digging through my bag to get my keys because I'd already dropped my keys in my bag, and my thumb is in the door this whole time. And so it was like off to a bad start. Like, I could feel my heartbeat in my thumb. It immediately was like black. You could see. I had to run a lap around the neighborhood. This was like before they got to the date. I took Advil. But it was like throbbing. It hurt so bad. It was all I could think about.
No.
And we like went and got dinner, and we went go-kart racing or whatever, which was fun. But my thumb hurt so bad that I could not think about anything but my thumb. And then he kissed me at the end of the date, and I was like, I don't like you. And
How old were you?
I was 16.
Oh, okay.
Or 16 at this point, I think. And yeah, that was uncomfortable. But he reached out again, and I was like, I think I should give him another chance because I wasn't in a very good mindset the first date.
Right.
I don't know why. Like, everything he did just annoyed me. I was just annoyed the whole time.
I have a feeling why.
I feel like it's just men in general. You don't have to be just
straight.
I feel like, regardless, I don't think he was like reading the cues that I was giving very well.
Right.
I think he was just like had his own agenda, and that was like what was prioritized, and not really like getting to know me. So the second date that we went on was out in Minden, and we went to the hot springs, and he wanted to play 20 questions or never have I ever, one of those games.
Yeah,
that's
I
just,
already
like,
know.
You know what you're wanting to like ask and like get at.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk to you about that because I don't know you, first of all. And this makes me really uncomfortable. And I remember he tried to kiss me while we were like in the pool, and I was like jumping backwards, and he was like trying to like move closer toward me, and we were just like jumping around the pool because I would not stay in one place so that we could like kiss in the pool, because I did not want to do that. And then I think I ghosted him. Sorry, he's married with a child now, so I think
he's okay. I think he's living.
But that was like my only dating experience, and I just remember like it always gave me so much anxiety. I always felt so uncomfortable. It felt so unnatural. I was like, I'm just gonna be a nun.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna pursue this lifestyle. It's not for me, you know? And then I feel like that was like all that happened in high school.
I want to go back to you writing in your journal. Like what was your thought process when you like said that you were, you know, you needed to write that down? Like what made you get to that point? I just think that's like just an interesting thing that you said about like actually writing it down, and like how did that help your process? Was that something that was like beneficial for you, and like what made you do that?
Yeah, I think it was something that I thought about every single day, all the time, was like, am I gay? Am I gay? Am I gay? Like excessively thinking about it, because I feel like it was just so stressful to be like, then what am I supposed to do? You know? And I've always been a journaler. Especially in high school, I journaled all the time. And this was like in college. This is after I graduated, was when I like came out. But I mean, this is like the classic gay experience. I watched a lot of like coming out videos, and like a lot of like queer women that I found existing on the internet, and like Tumblr and YouTube, and you kind of just like find people who like, I was raised in a like super religious family, and I'm queer, and here's my coming out story, and here's my whole process. And I was like obsessed with that shit. Like
That was in high school that you were watching that?
In high school and like in college too. Just like finding people on the internet that had a similar experience, and then just like really resonating with their stories. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm so interested in like looking at all of this. And a lot of them are like, you know, if you're doing these things, you might be gay. It's like literally what they'd be saying in the videos. And I'm like, you know, you might be right. But I think that like when I eventually like wrote it down and said it to myself, it was like made it more like concrete, and made it more like, this is a thing. And I still didn't feel like I could talk about it. I still felt very like emotional about that, because I felt not that it was like wrong, because I love people who are gay, and like I've never had like, I think it was like it was internalized homophobia.
Yep.
Basically.
Yeah.
Is what was going on. And I'm like, it's fine when you do it, but if I'm gonna do it, then it's a problem, you know? But I think writing it down was like the first step toward like learning more about myself, and like allowing myself to be, and like for that to be a real thing. So that was kind of like the first step, was just coming out to myself. I had a conversation with my friend Isaiah, who had come out to me in high school. We were in college at this point, and we like went and got lunch together, and I was like dancing around saying that I'm gay, but basically saying that I'm gay. And we like cried and held hands, and it was like I didn't come out, but I basically had, you know? And then the first person I ever came out to is my friend Matthew, who was a stranger at the time, and we were in a class together. And like the first day of class, we all went around and like shared 3 facts about ourselves or whatever. And one of his was that he's queer. And I was like, that's really cool that he can just like say that. And I went up to him. We had to like partner up after this activity and like work on our next thing. And I was like, queer is like an umbrella term. Like, what does that mean for you? And he told me, he was like, oh, I'm gay, but I just like that word, you know? And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm gay too. And that was like the first person I ever
Wow.
came out to. I don't know, right?
I'm
It's
crying.
emotional,
It is so
yeah.
emotional. I think that's like so beautiful that that's like you were able to like feel so safe with somebody to just say that like that. Did you feel more relieved that
Totally.
you yeah?
I mean, immediately after that. So Matthew and I are actually like really close friends to this day. And that was like the first day that we ever met each other. But immediately after that, I texted my best friends and said that I'm gay. And they were like, yay.
I'm crying.
But I just needed to like do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like the stakes were low with a stranger
Mhm.
who is obviously like comfortable with himself and could say that I was like, oh, I can just tell him too.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, that was the first person that I like said those words to, and then came out to my friends, and then I like started to try to like date because I'm like, well, I guess that's what we do next. Got into my first relationship, and that was when I came out to my family. What's an interesting choice that I made was to come out as bisexual because I felt like that was like more of a little like toe in the water, you know, even though I fully knew that that was not true. But I came out to my sister Julia first. She was the first person I came out to in our family. And because you were in school, you were away at college, and I was like living back in Reno.
Interesting. Okay.
What?
Just when you came out to me, I was already in Peru. So I didn't know how
Oh.
long you'd already
Well, actually,
been.
maybe you were not then. You were not living. I mean, you haven't lived back in Minden since.
I was 18 and ran away.
Yeah. So maybe you weren't.
But
I don't think you were
that's
in school
it's
anymore.
fine.
But came out to Julia because she was like chill. You know, I feel like I could tell her, and she would be fine, and she was fine.
Uh-huh.
And then,
Did you tell her in person?
mhm. Yeah, I picked her up from school, and I was like at home for something, and told her, and she was chill. And then I came out to you and mom and dad all at the same time with a text message
Mm-hmm.
because I just felt like I couldn't say the words, and I feel like I was just really nervous about coming out to my parents.
Right.
And I felt like even if I did say the thing, I didn't know what they were going to say back, and I felt like I couldn't have a conversation about it like I can now, you know? Because I still felt like uncomfortable with myself. So I sent a text message to them, and they all had really sweet responses, which was very nice. The reality of their responses was maybe not true. I don't know. Like saying things, but then not
Oh,
actually,
right. Like,
the actions
right,
were
right,
not
right.
matching what the words were, you know? I've never talked to my dad about it since I sent that text message. We've never had a conversation about it.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. Which feels like it makes sense.
It was
Yeah.
my brain.
But it's fine. Like, I think there's never been anything like bad that he's said.
Mhm.
It was just like wall of silence
Mm.
vibes, you know? Which I think a big thing that I learned is like meeting people where they're at and not expecting, like I had gone through this like years of trying to figure myself out, and you can't expect the second that you share information with someone else for them to like be on the same page as you.
Right.
Especially with the whole religious factor. I don't know, this wasn't necessary for me to do. It was certainly like draining and heartbreaking for myself to do, and I don't know why I did this, but I like prepared for everyone to not have a relationship with me anymore, and like prepared to like completely, I wanted to be financially independent from like my parents because I didn't know, and like have my own living situation and just like be completely independent because I didn't know what the reaction was going to be. But yeah, so, and oh yeah, I came out like while my parents were like getting a divorce. So it was like already a tumultuous time
Yeah, honestly,
in our family.
when I was in Peru, it was like both those things came to me through text message. My mom texted me saying we're getting divorced. Savannah texted me saying I'm gay. I was like, cool. I'll just keep on trekking.
Walking through the woods.
Oh God.
But it I felt very like detached. Not detached in the sense that I was detached, but just like there was so much happening at home, and I just was in literally a whole other country.
Yeah.
And like I felt like I like didn't know how to be there for you, for siblings going through parents' divorce, for anyone. I just felt like I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like thinking about those things before I came out, but then I'm like, I mean, I'm not gonna not do this because it's like bad timing, because I don't know when it's not gonna be like hard to say this. And it was like, I am gonna not be okay if I can't share this information.
Right.
And I just need to like be myself and own my truth and say these things, like regardless of what else is going on around me. So yeah, tumultuous times in our house. I like thought that people would be where I'm at, and that wasn't the case, and like wanted my family to meet my girlfriend, and then they didn't want to meet my girlfriend, and that was like hard. Then it kind of started a moment of like pulling back and pulling away, you know? So I think that's kind of when I like really leaned into my friends and wasn't so attached to like my familial relationships as much. And I was told not to tell my younger siblings, so they didn't know for a while. But then they did know, because they're not idiots. Because they're full humans with brains.
Yeah.
And like,
We don't give young people enough credit.
No, we do not.
no. And then I'm like, well, then when do I tell them? Because now it's like so long that everybody else has known this information, and now I feel bad because they don't know.
Right.
But I don't want to go against like what my parents are saying. And it's like, why is it a bad thing that I'm gay? Why is it a bad thing that they know that I'm gay?
I feel like that, like, it's like, yeah, we're accepting of you, but also still hide it.
Yeah.
Like, it's still the shame piece.
Totally.
It's there.
Yeah.
And even harder for you too, because you're an older sibling and you take on older sibling responsibilities and this like pull of like, I want to protect them, but I'm not going to, I'm me. I'm not shielding them from anything. Like I want to be open and share my feelings so that if they're feeling that way, like they feel that they can come to me for everything because I go to them for everything or like share aspects of my life. And so being pulled in so many directions and not really knowing like what to do. And I also feel like you're very much like Erica, where like the people pleasing comes in and like you're not going to want to go into against what your parents have asked you not to do, but also like they're your siblings, you know what I mean? So I just seems very difficult to navigate at that time.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird moment. And so then I kind of was like navigating those situations like, this is my friend, even though that's not what it was. But her family was like, I mean, her and her brother are gay. The only two siblings in the family are both gay. And their parents were so cool. And I felt like we got to still have like a relationship with her parents in the way that I kind of wish that we could have with my parents, but there was just not the space for that. So I'm grateful for that. I don't know. I think through that, though, I kind of developed in myself like a level of self-acceptance and love that I don't need it to come from anybody else. Because I feel like when you give that power to people in your family or a relationship or friends or something, like then it can be taken from you. And I feel like I really developed that like love and acceptance for myself and patience for myself, and like went on that journey not alone, but it was like very internal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I'm grateful for. And I'm grateful that I've like matured through that experience of like meeting people where they're at. It was like a huge thing.
Yeah. I also want to touch on like your journey of confidence and like, I don't know if this is a word, but like allyship, because I feel like, for instance, and like I don't want to put like my sisters on blast, but when I saw you, and I don't know if you remember this, but I think the first time that I've seen you since high school, since all of the youngin' days, was over the summer. I think both of you guys were there at whatever that restaurant is in Carson before you guys were going to McKenna's like dance recital. And that was the first time I saw you, and both of you were there, and I was with, I think, both of my sisters. And I was like, oh, hey, it was like a 2-minute conversation. I was like, I miss you. Like, we'll have to catch up. It was before we went out for drinks. You had left, and like, I think my dad and his girlfriend went to the bathroom, and both my sisters were like, she is so confident. Like, how does she do that? Cool. And I think, you know, both my sisters are working through a lot. And I think like being an ally without, you know, you didn't talk to them about anything. Like they, you know, that was just a 2-minute, you just said hi and that was it. But like that aura that you have around yourself, like that journey, and like it's not really a question, but more of like your thoughts on your own like confidence and growth and the way that you like hold yourself up now. Like it seems like it was like an internal journey, but at least from like outside perspective, like you are so much of like somebody who eludes confidence and ally. I don't know if it's a word, but like allyship, I'm using it. That's what I'm doing. And so like, how do you have any thoughts around that and how you got to be there? I know it's probably like a work in progress, but I just wanted to share that with you and ask like how you do it.
Well, that's very sweet. I didn't know that they said that. That's really cool. I think since coming out and like getting more involved in like the queer community and making more, like all of my friends are queer, and I love that. I think that, like, not that straight people can't have, like, this depth of understanding with themselves, but I don't think that, like, straight people really consider why they're straight and, like, go through the process of really trying to know themselves in that way. And there's just, like, this common understanding that I've recognized among queer people of, like, that journey. And I think that's really cool. And it's something that I really love to be surrounded with, is like just loving, accepting people. And I think that I've really gone from like being afraid to admit that I am queer to really leaning into that and like loving that part of myself and thinking that that's really cool, and just feeling like, I don't know, like doing what feels right for me, and I don't really care what other people think. And I think that that's where confidence for anybody can come from, is just to like do what feels right for you and like fuck the rest, because this is like your life. And I think I, since coming out, have like loved to explore that part of myself and to like look as queer as possible. I like that. I want people to know that when they see me. And I mean, that was like a big reason why I cut my hair off, was because I wanted to be more visibly queer. And I felt like I loved my long hair, but it wasn't really like feeling like it resonated with me anymore. And I wanted to feel more like leaning into my masculinity and leaning more into like androgyny. And that's something that feels right for me. And I think there's just so much more freedom in letting yourself explore that and letting yourself like do whatever feels right for you. I think there's a lot of and like the typical hetero situation, there's like actually a lot of rules of being and like ways that are like acceptable and not acceptable. And I think that being queer kind of just automatically goes against that. And so there's not really any rules anymore. And you can just do what feels right for you in presentation and in the way you speak and the people that you hang out with. And I've like really found a sense of freedom, and I feel very empowered, like having a say over who I am, and nobody gets to like determine that for me.
I think you allude that too. Like you just, it comes across, and I know like just knowing you and hearing your story today, like it's taken a lot of work to get to where you are, but it's just like I said before, like it's your aura, it's your confidence, and it's just such a beautiful thing about yourself. And like people look at you whether or not they identify as like queer, but to be like, she is confident in herself, like that's what I want to be, you know? And so I think that's such a beautiful thing to like, and also just to show that like it's a growth process. Like you really have to turn in yourself and figure out yourself, and not, like you said, like not care what people think.
Yeah, I think it just really like lets those barriers down of like, I feel like I'm kind of more of a shy person than I have been in the past, and it's like actually been such a source of confidence to like have blue hair and to just be doing weird things that people don't normally do, or to like dress in a way that someone wouldn't typically dress. I guess I think it's like makes other queer people aware that like you're a person that they can like come to and talk to. And I think a lot of people like ask questions, and I'm in a lot of spaces with my job where I'm like surrounded by old white people, and I feel like they can come to me and ask me things, or we can have conversations about things, and it like breaks down those barriers of like discomfort or them not being sure of like how to navigate that situation, because I feel confident. I feel like I can talk about myself, and I feel like every queer person to feel comfortable and confident. And so that's like a space that I try to make for everybody, is like a space of freedom to exist, to say what's on your mind, to want everyone to feel like comfortable around me. And I think that's like kind of the space that I try to cultivate by being myself.
This might be like an obvious answer and something that I can just assume, but like what makes a space not feel welcoming, aside from like people clearly like you shouldn't be gay?
I don't know. I think it's kind of that's actually a hard question, I think, because there's been spaces that I didn't think I would feel comfortable feeling, very like Republican straight vibes, that have actually been really cool and really open to conversation and very accepting. And I think most people are accepting of queer people and know someone who is gay and love someone who is gay. And so I think that's something that we have like a stigma as a queer community against other people, which is sometimes true. There are homophobic people, and there are people who can say hateful things, but for the most part, I actually have never, knock on wood, like experienced homophobia. Someone did call me a dyke when I was walking across the street in San Diego, and I thought that was funny. Yeah, like shouted out their window. I mean, that was a dyke.
Wait, was I there?
This was before I had met up with you.
Oh.
I was just with like Maddie and Isaiah.
What the fuck, Sandy?
I think that word is so funny, and I love the word dyke, and I have the word queer tattooed on me. So like these are things that I'm proud of, and I feel like you can say something homophobic to me and I really won't give a shit.
Yeah.
Because I'm
secure
in myself and like happy with where I'm at.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have a woman in my ceramics class who made me feel very uncomfortable because I have the word queer tattooed on my arm. So I think that that's like
trigger or something for somebody.
Well, like I mean, like clearly
a conversation
it's a conversation piece, and like
yeah.
I'm down to talk about it, so I don't really give a shit. And she came up to me and was like, "What does queer mean for you?" And so I told her, I feel like I've got kind of a queer gender identity as well, which is like something that I'm like currently navigating and have been for like a few years, but I don't necessarily feel the need to like tell everyone about that because I'm kind of just like doing my thing, you know? But I told her that I'm like gay, and then I'm like, but I would also like label myself as genderqueer, I guess you could say, because she asked me, and then she was like, so you're not gay? And I was like, what? I'm like, do you know what genderqueer means? And do you know how like gender and sexuality are two different things?
Right.
And she was like, oh, I used to volunteer with my church for the AIDS clinic or something. And
What?
I'm like, okay. She's like an anomaly. She's a weird example.
Gotcha.
But she would kind of like went off about, I mean, she asked me, oh, that must have been hard growing up in Minden and being gay. And I'm like, it's fine. I don't feel like it was different. I mean, it's the only thing I know. So I don't know. Also, as this conversation's happening, I'm getting more like, what's the point of what we're saying right now? So I don't know. I think it's just like maybe doing what she did and having no social cues would make someone uncomfortable and like forcing someone to say something that's not true about themselves. But I don't know. I think as long as you're like being an ally, I know Isaiah's been in some like homophobic situations where other people have had to like intervene or help out or like, you know, say something. And that's like always appreciated because, you know, if you're just alone trying to defend yourself, that can be like a hard thing to do. Yeah. And you never know. But surprisingly, never experienced homophobia. I don't really know. That didn't really answer your question.
No,
but
I didn't have an answer I was looking for. I just wanted to know if there was anything. Hearing your story, because I feel like I've never really heard your whole journey navigating everything, and like I thought it was beautiful you saying that like straight people don't necessarily have to know why they're straight or think about like why they are the way that they are or dress the way that they dress or think the way that they think. And Ellie and I have talked about this too, just like being more in tune with our own bodies and like, what do we want? Why are we thinking
why
this
do we
way?
do what we do? Sometimes is it just because that's what we've always done, or is it because it's enjoyable for me? So
I think it's a good perspective to have, like
Absolutely.
that you've had to already navigate that, and sometimes it's just taken for granted when it's like the typical thing.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Like
absolutely.
the regular thing, although
It's more
of a...
Would you say it's more accepted now?
being
Like,
gay.
Being
Oh,
gay?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Even from like Isaiah's experience, he came out in high school and that was like really fucking hard and different because he was in Minden and like, but even then, people in Minden were like accepting
Yeah.
the people that you would not think
Absolutely.
would be.
Yeah.
And like when we all live together, our neighbor upstairs is like as straight as they come, old white guy, construction worker, like Republican, and he was such an ally. Like,
That's amazing.
had so much love for the queer community and like would come down to our house and we're having like, people have said that our parties are the gayest parties they've ever been to because there's so many queer people in our friend group, which I love. And he was like totally in the same space and like just vibing with us. And I think
that.
it's like, you just never know. So in the same way that like, you don't want someone to make assumptions about you, you can't do that
Right.
to other people. And that's definitely been like something that I've learned through this process of like coming out and talking about it. But I guess I got nothing else to say.
But I know you have to wrap up quick, but I just think like the fact that to take up like time out of your day to like explain it, like it's not your job to tell us or anybody your story. So the fact that you are doing that, not only for us, but like the people that listen to our podcast is like just such a beautiful thing and like very, very appreciative of that. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I love you guys. And I like would have watched this shit when I was a kid, like trying to figure it out. And so like McKenna asked me how I knew I was gay when this was like a few years back. And I was like, whoa, that's really cool that you get to ask someone that because I felt like I didn't really have anybody that I could talk, like someone who I knew that was gay. So it's cool to be that person for someone and to like share it on the internet because, you know, feels like heavy shit, and it can be, but it's really like a gateway to like freedom and self-expression and
Absolutely.
love, and that's all good stuff.
All good stuff.
Love you.
Love you guys.
We love you.
Okay.
Shout out Rachel.
Yeah.
Teeny. All right. Well.
Okay. Well, thanks for
Thanks
having
for coming.
me.
Yes, thank
This
you
was
so much
good.
for
This
coming.
was so fun.
Yay!
All
We'll have to do it
right.
again. Next, we'll do a fun one.
Yes.
Our heavy religion ones, too. Gosh. All right, guys. We love you.